They say, if you ever find yourself alone on a midnight bus and you notice a passenger you don't remember boarding, don't look at their face. And whatever you do, don't let them know you can see them. Because some passengers don't need a ticket. Some passengers don't need to breathe. And some were never human to begin with. *I used to drive Route 47, midnight to 4 o'clock a.m. It was the kind of shift nobody wanted. The city looked normal during the day. Crowded sidewalks, traffic, noise, life. But after midnight, everything changed. The streets became hollow, like something had peeled the skin off the city and left only bones. Most nights, I carried maybe 3 or 4 passengers. Night shift. Nurses, drunk college kids. A security guard who always fell asleep in the back row. But that night, no one got on, not at the first stop, not at the second, not even at the central station. The rain had started just after 12:30 a.m. Thick, heavy drops slamming against the windshield, the kind of rain that turns street lights into blurry halos. I checked the mirror. Empty bus. Every seat. Every row. Empty. That should have been comforting. But at WASN single quotes T, because around 1:12 a.m., I heard the bell ring. Ding. D. A stop request. My hands froze on the steering wheel. Hadn't stopped anywhere for nearly 10 minutes. Slowly, I looked up into the rearview mirror. And that's when I saw him. He was sitting in the very last row. Center seat. Perfectly still. I don't know how long he'd been there. He wasn't wet. His clothes were dry. Darkot. Pale hands resting neatly on his knees. His head was slightly tilted downward, like he was listening, watching, waiting. My throat tightened. I hadn't heard the doors open. I hadn't seen anyone board. But there he was. Told myself he must have gotten on at Central Station. When I was distracted, that had to be it. Next stop, I muttered quietly. The bus slowed. The rain grew louder. I glanced back again. He hadn't moved. Not even slightly. The bus came to a stop. Doors hissed. Open. Silence. No footsteps. No movement. The stop bell rang again. Ding. Slowly. His head lifted. And for the first time, I saw his face. At first glance, he looked normal. To normal. Skin pale, but smooth. Eyes. Expression.com. But something wasn't right. He wasn't blinking. Not once. And his eyes weren't focusing that. They were pointed forward, but not at anything. Like glass marbles pressed into a mask. Sir, I called out. Nothing. Last stop for this route. Slowly, his head turned. Not naturally. It rotated slightly too, far like his neck didn't have the right limits. And then he smiled, not wide, not exaggerated. Just enough. I felt cold spread through my chest. He stood up. Too smoothly. Like gravity didn't apply to him the same way. He walked forward down the aisle. Each step perfectly even. No sound. No shift in balance. I watched him through the mirror. Halfway down the aisle, he stopped. Then he tilted his head again and whispered something. But his mouth didn't move. I heard it clearly. Right beside my ear. He can see me. My blood turned to ice because I hadn't spoken and I hadn't moved. But he knew. A grandfather used to tell me stories when I was a kid. He had also been a bus driver. Same city. Same route. He once told me. If someone boards without you seeing them, don't acknowledge them. I used to laugh at that dot until that moment. The man took another step. Then another dot closer to the front. The bus doors were still open. Rain pouring outside, but he wasn't looking at the exit. He was looking at me, and the closer he got, the less human he appeared. His smile stretched slightly wider. His eyes seemed deeper, darker, like there was no bottom, and then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. He had no reflection in the mirror anymore. Primera vez watching him directly now. But in the rearview mirror, the aisle was empty. Asterisk. The lights inside the bus flickered. Outside, the city looked wrong. The buildings were darker. The streetlights dimmer. No cars. No movement. No sound. It was like we weren't in the city anymore. The man reached the front row. He stopped, just behind the yellow line. Passengers aren't allowed past it. But he stepped forward. Anyway, right next to my seat. I could feel him standing there, cold, like pressure in the air. "Why can you see me?" he whispered. This time his lips moved. Barely his voice didn't echo in my ears. It echoed in my skull. Couldn't answer. I didn't know how. Because the truth was, I didn't want to see him. But I did, and that meant something was wrong. Very wrong. Asterisk slowly. I turned my head and looked at him directly. Up close. His skin wasn't his skin. It was stretched thin, like Santa, and wearing a face it had borrowed. His eyes were hollow pits, not dark brown, not black. Empty. And inside those pits, movement. Shapes. Like shadows swimming behind glass. His smile widened. Too wide now. Tearing slightly at the corners. "You weren't supposed to notice," he said softly. The bus doors slammed, shut on their own. The engine died. The lights went out. Complete darkness. I could still see him, because his eyes were glowing faintly now. A dull gray light, like moonlight trapped in fog. We sped at the road between worlds, and suddenly I understood. Asterisk Route 47 wasn't just a bus line, it was a crossing between the living and something else. Most nights, it carried normal passengers. But sometimes, it carried the lost. The ones who didn't know they were dead. The ones who weren't meant to arrive anywhere, and drivers. Drivers were never supposed to see them. We were supposed to keep our eyes forward. Drive. Stop. Open. Doors. Close doors. No questions. But I'd looked, and now he knew. Asterisk. He leaned closer. So close his face was inches from mine. I could feel cold air entering my lungs. "You can come with me," he said. "Or you can stay and forget." Outside the windows, I saw shapes forming. Silhouettes standing in the rain. Watching the bus. Waiting. Hundreds of them. All. Faceless all. Still. Waiting for the doors to open. I realized something terrifying. The bus wasn't empty earlier. I just couldn't see them. Asterisk grabbed the ignition key, turned it hard. Nothing. He smiled wider. "You already crossed," he whispered. My heart pounded so violently I thought it would burst. I did the only thing I could think of. I closed my eyes and said out loud, I don't see you. Silent and cold. Air withdrew slightly. I don't see you. I repeated, louder. The pressure around me began to fade. The engine coughed. Dot once. Dot. Twice. Dot. The lights flickered back on. He kept my eyes closed. I don't see you. And then the engine roared to life. When I finally opened my eyes, the bus was empty. The rain was normal. The city lights were bright again. And the clock read, La 1:13 am 1 minute after I first heard the bell. Asterisk, finished the route. Hands shaking. Didn't look in the mirror once. When I reached the depot, I checked the security footage. The bus had been empty all night. No one boarded. No one moved. No figure in the back seat. But at exactly 1:12 a.m., the rear camera, GLITC, HED, static. For 60 seconds, and in the distortion, if you looked closely, you could see a shadow dot standing right behind my seat, watching me. Asterisk. I quit 2 weeks later. Couldn't drive at night anymore. But sometimes, when I'm walking home after dark, I hear it, a bus engine, idling. Slow, heavy, and the faint sound of a stop bell. Ding. When I turn around, there's no bus, but the air feels colder. And just for a second, I see him, standing at the end of the street, watching, waiting for the next driver who makes the mistake of looking back. Asterisk. If you ever find yourself alone on a midnight bus and you hear the bell ring behind you, don't turn around. Some routes aren't meant to be understood. And some passengers are just passing through. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, because the next route we take might not lead back home. Good night, and don't miss your stop.